President and Chief Counselor of First Liberty, Attorney Kelly Shackelford.
No matter what your situation, there is a right to a religious exemption. People think they can do things because they think people don't have power to fight back.
Hello and welcome to The Difference. Today, Kendall and I are visiting with Kelly Shackelford, the founder and leader of First Liberty Institute, the largest legal organization defending religious freedoms in America today. Kelly, thank you for being on The Difference with us today.
Love being here. It's great to be with
Talking
you.
about the current tactics of intimidation that a lot of people in the United States are feeling right now, especially when it comes to the word mandate. Mandate sounds very strong, it's authoritative. What is actually causing it, and what can we do about it?
Well, there are a lot of people that are trying to abuse their power, and in many cases abusing their power. I think everybody has seen these different attacks, and it's in so many different areas, like nurses, right? But it's also military, government employees, maybe your private employer.
Yeah.
It's coming from different angles. Schools, right? And so one of the things we did at First Liberty is we created a pamphlet or a resource where people can look at this, and what we call it is Religious Liberty Protection Kit for the Vaccine Mandates, to know what your rights are. If you're a student, if you're in the military, if you have a government employer, if you have a private employer. And here's the good news. No matter what your situation, pretty much almost everywhere in the United States, there is a right to a religious exemption or religious accommodation, usually medical as well. Because some people, if they take a vaccine, it can have horrible medical consequences because of their own situation. But with religious liberty, we so respect that in this country that we do everything we can to accommodate people who have different religious beliefs. And so let's say you have a private employer. There are laws. It goes back to it's called the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. You can't discriminate on the basis of race, sex, religion. Everybody kind of knows this law. But what they don't know is there's an extra provision that says not only do you not discriminate on the basis of religion, but you are required as an employer to affirmatively accommodate the religious beliefs of your employees if you can do so. So when somebody says, oh, I can't do that, I know it doesn't violate your faith, but it violates my faith to do that, there's federal law that protects those people. And if it's violated, the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, can even bring a lawsuit on their behalf. And if they don't, you still have a right to bring your own lawsuit if you want. So a lot of people have religious objections because of the fetal cells, the abortions that were used to either test or make some of these vaccines. But in addition, there are other people that's not their objection. It's for them, it's their body as a temple, and God has told them not to put certain things into their body. It doesn't matter what it is, to be honest.
Correct.
It's a matter of if it's your belief and it's sincere, then it's protected. I can't tell you how many people have gone, they've gotten that resource, they've gone, 90% of them is granted. Okay? They've gotten the exemption. But the other 10%, what I find is they're told no. Or they're told
they just don't turn it in?
And they don't turn it in.
Yeah.
And what I've found is I even had a doctor, I'm thinking of a particular doctor. He turned in his request. Three different hospitals where he worked. One of them granted, the other two didn't. He pushed back on the other two. Now he's granted it all three.
Correct.
It was just a matter of intimidating people.
Well, and to your point about intimidation, the word mandate sounds very official, but I think it's important for people to understand just because an elected official says it doesn't make it law.
No.
If your governor or the mayor or the president stands up and says, I'm going to, the beauty of America is with the separation of powers, there's a process by which something becomes law, and it doesn't happen at a press conference.
No. So example of that, right? Everybody saw that the president gave this big press conference saying that he's going to come up with this new regulation from OSHA that's going to tell every employer that has 100 or more people that they have to force everybody to get the mandate. Well, most people think that it's happened. It hasn't happened.
They think it's done as soon as the news goes off.
None of that's done. as soon as those regulations come out, assuming they do, I think there's going to be 1,000 lawsuits filed. OSHA applies to churches.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, immediately my phone rang off the hook because with our school and all the different things that we have here, they say, well, what's that going to do to us?
Yeah. And so what's going to happen is we've got lawsuits already prepared, ready to be filed 5 minutes after if they release these, because it's massively unconstitutional.
Correct.
Number one, health and safety is controlled by the states, not the federal government. Okay. OSHA has no authority to do this. There's so many problems with it. Even if the federal government had the authority, it would be done through the legislature, not from some edict from, an executive, right? And then take the OSHA regulations themselves. They would do this because they say there's an emergency. Well, let me see. Okay, there's an emergency, but people who have 100 employees and less, it doesn't apply to
Exactly.
them. Doesn't sound like much of an emergency to me.
If you've got 99 employees, apparently it's not a problem.
But here's the good news I want people to understand. Even if all that unconstitutionality was ignored, and let's say the courts did everything wrong and they said, yes, this OSHA mandate applies, every employer has to require, religious exemptions are still federal law.
Correct.
Everybody still has a right to religious exemptions. And let's say you're an employer who doesn't, particularly want to, and again, they're ignoring all the unconstitutionality here. All you have to do as an employer is say, I want people to understand that under the law, religious exemptions and medical exemptions are allowed as a matter of right, because I want to respect my employees and I want you to know your rights. And I want you to know that if you ask for one, I will respect that. We've got a lawsuit we're in the process of filing right now on behalf of 36 Navy SEALs.
Because you were talking about military personnel that are under duress.
I mean, it's just incredible. These are young guys. If you look at the percentages of what would happen to them in their shape, number one, there's almost zero danger from COVID for them.
Correct.
But number two, a lot of them are already immune. And the idea that you're going to throw them out of the service because they have a religious objection and you refuse to even listen, and again, it's required by law.
Correct.
It's just incredible. We're going to throw our best people out of the military?
Navy SEALs are special forces operators.
Yes.
They have selflessly sacrificed just to qualify to be called Navy SEALs.
Yes.
And then the things that they're sent around the world to do are often, life and death situations. And because of a vaccination that they don't need, we're going to eliminate them from service.
And dishonorable discharge.
Yeah.
We're going to punish them, which is basically like a felony.
Correct. Dishonorable discharge, if you're here in San Antonio, military city, so many people understand what a detriment that is to your record.
Yes.
But, that's for individuals who violate the law.
Yes.
Not for individuals who choose not to get an injection.
The reason these people are fighting for us is so that we have freedom. And the idea that we wouldn't give them freedom, that they don't have freedom of conscience, this is really, I think this angers most Americans.
It should.
These are people that are willing to give their lives.
Yeah.
And the idea that we're treating them this way, and by the way, there's regulations, the orders right now, that if you don't have the vaccine in the military, your family is prohibited from traveling. Not just you, your family. So think of that, okay? Let's say your wife's father dies.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to travel to go to his funeral. Now, I had a Marine that just told me,
just being a military wife.
You try to stop my wife from going.
Good luck.
But this is the kind of discrimination and abusiveness.
I wouldn't want to tell you that.
This is the kind of thing that's happening. It never should happen in our. And I'll tell people, look, if you need the resource, go to our website and get it. But we can't represent, we're getting 5,000 requests,
I'm
right?
signing religious exemptions based off of First Liberty. I told our congregation, download the form. I'm signing 25, 30 of them a week.
Yeah. And so we can't represent everybody. So I would just encourage people, get on our list where you get the emails every week.
Yes.
Because then you'll at least see when the precedents start coming down. Because we're trying to pick the best cases, file those, and create precedents that help all these people that need help, that we can't represent that many people. So stay in touch, because you might not be told about these victories by the media.
No, they're not going to get celebrated on the liberal news.
No.
But, with regard to that, your win-loss record as First Liberty is astounding. It's over, as I believe, 90%.
Over 90% every year for the last 22 years.
Well, that's the way God works, and you know, truth is not a document. Truth is an individual. His name is Jesus Christ.
Amen.
And everywhere you see truth, you see His fingerprints, which is how our country was founded. It's what the laws were built around, and it's what your organization is so valiantly defending. When we come back, we're going to talk about how you can play a role in defending this truth and this freedom.
That there's a group of people who are here to support people's religious freedoms.
To make sure that our freedoms, our children's religious freedoms, are going to be standing for something was an encouragement. I don't feel so discouraged about the direction our country's taking.
I understand what this means. Religious freedom is the first freedom, and the founders called it the first freedom because they understand if you lose this freedom, you'll lose all your freedoms. And this is something that Christians don't even understand. Most Christians think religious freedom is important because I want the ability to live out my faith. It's much bigger than that, okay? And we're starting to see this as Marxism starts to creep into our country and attack. The first thing it has to do is remove the church. These are competing systems. And so we're starting to see this. There's a great book I would encourage you if you get a chance to read it. It's only 214 pages. It's called Live Not by Lies. And Rod Dreher, the author of the book, goes and interviews people from former communist countries. And they talk about what happened and how terrified they are at what they're seeing right now in the United States as these new attempts, as Marxism begins seeping into the United States. And the question is, well, what do you do about it? The answer is live not by lies. Alexander Solzhenitsyn's last essay before he was banned from the Soviet Union was Live Not by Lies, which said these totalitarian regimes all exist by everybody going along with the lies. And if enough people, not a majority, just enough people will stand up and speak the truth, even though it costs them, the totalitarianism collapses. And it tells the story of each country of how people did this. I remember one of them, an 80-year-old woman now who at the time then was 16 and was told if she spoke the truth, she would be put to death. She stood for the truth. She's 81 now, still alive, and her country is free. But this is this battle we're in. It's a really unusual time. There is a cost for standing and speaking the truth. There are all these lies that we all know are lies. The best way I can describe this is the one thing that a totalitarian regime can never allow is citizens who hold an allegiance to one higher than the government. Because whenever that happens, there are these one people, they won't bow their knee to the government, and they cannot allow that. A totalitarian regime can never allow it. So if that is the first flashpoint, and if you lose there, you'll lose all your freedoms.
Thank you for watching today's program. And now here's a glimpse of our next episode.
These pastors who think, oh, I don't want to get involved in that, that's like political. Or it's not political, it's about freedom.
Correct.
It's about you standing as the church. And so we've got to wake up, and people have to wake up or they're not going to have their freedoms.